Welcome to the Glasgow Business Game Plan, where we are capturing the stories of Glasgow's business leaders. And today we're delighted to have a conversation with Rebecca Hansen from Wire. Rebecca, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me. Super excited to chat about my business.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. So let's just dive straight in and tell me more about the business.
First, name of the business is Wire. Our website's trywire.com. And we're a platform that sells vehicles. The only type of vehicle we sell is electric vehicles. We do that because that's the future of all vehicles. Everything will be electric in the not too distant future. Not because of government mandate. They cost very little to manufacture. They last forever. They're just a better vehicle than current petrol automobiles. A little bit about myself. As you can tell from my accent, that I'm not actually originally from Scotland, but I've lived in Glasgow since 2018. Originally started traveling to the UK in the late 90s, early 2000s, doing a lot of work down in London. And took some time off and then started coming to Scotland in 2016. Decided to open our business here, and have been super excited about it.
Great. And was there something specific about Glasgow that made you want to open the business here?
There was a couple of things that excited me about Glasgow. So when we were looking to establish a European operation for a company I have in the US, not at all related to electric vehicles, we looked at London and found, of course, we're not surprised, but London is incredibly expensive. And so we decided to look further afield in the UK. And so I took a fact-finding trip up to Scotland, started off in Glasgow, and then looked at some other locations. Obviously looked at Edinburgh, looked at Aberdeen, even looked up Inverness. And of the four cities, the one I just really kind of resonated with me was Glasgow. And some of the things I really liked about Glasgow, just on a personal level, not at all related to our business, is everybody here is super friendly. It's a very easy town to get around. There's a lot going on here. But then from a business standpoint, the business we were looking to operate in needed a lot of software engineers, and Glasgow has 3 universities. As everyone in the city knows, there's a huge student population in Glasgow. That would be super beneficial to us. What a lot of people might not know is the University of Glasgow is one of the top-rated computer science programs on the planet, not just within Europe, not just in the UK, but in the world. And so that was super exciting to us. And of course, another thing from a business standpoint, purely business, Glasgow was really helpful to us is it's far less expensive than over in Edinburgh, and obviously much less expensive than down in London. So it just made a lot of business sense to be here. But like I said, I also just really enjoy the city. And after having our business here for a couple of years, decided I would spend much more of my time here. So I do spend probably about 2/3 of my time in Glasgow. The other third I still spend back in the US.
Very good. So I'm absolutely sure that transition to moving to the UK and setting a business up was fairly straightforward for you.
Surprisingly enough, establishing a business in the UK is actually quite simple. That it's really easy to just go out and hop on company's house, form a company, you tick a few boxes. It's very, very, very simple. The most challenging thing we had for establishing a business was opening a business bank account. Okay. That, to be fair, was nightmarish. It took us several months to get one open. Now, to be fair, part of it was both myself and the other director are Americans, and that caused a little issue. But I've since come to find out that, opening a business bank account never seems to be very straightforward. Whereas in the US, that is very trivial for me to do. Right. It's all the paperwork with the government. In the US, it's a nightmare. Over in the UK, government paperwork, very, very, very simple. I could not believe how simple it was. I figured I was missing half a dozen things that HMRC and some acronyms that I had never heard of were going to come after me. But so far that hasn't happened. So apparently I got everything right.
Brilliant, very good. And the business now in the UK it's obviously it's electric vehicles, very different to your background in the US. So what took you down that road of going for electric vehicles?
So the story about how we ended up selling electric vehicles is quite interesting. So our company in the US writes bespoke software for several different kinds of organizations, but one of the groups of companies we write software for is electric utilities. And about this came about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, we made the decision to commercialize some of that software we had written and sell it to other entities. And as part of doing that operation, we wanted to actually open a software development center in the UK. And we did that primarily for cost. The software engineers here are less expensive than in the US. And for a number of reasons, but one of them certainly is the fact that benefits in the UK cost much less because you have NHS.
Mm.
But besides that, we decided to open a software development center here. And the first set of software we're going to commercialize was a set of tools that promoted electric vehicles. We'd written this for one of our customers in the US, a very large utility in Texas. And we decided, you know what, we're going to make it generic so that any utility could use this. So we did. We put it together, made it somewhat generic, so it didn't have anybody's branding on it. It wasn't very specific to Texas. It would had just like federal incentives on it. It supported customization, so you could switch it to different states in the U.S. And then we started to market it. And then I did a presentation to an investor group, and the presentation went really, really well. As part of presenting this set of tools to promote electric vehicles, I'm sitting there, here's why you want to drive electric. Here's this tool to explain that a lot of things that people complain about that they don't go far enough. See, this shows you there's a whole bunch that go 300 miles. There's plenty that go 200 miles. They're too expensive. It had comparisons showing, you know what, if you compare like for like, they're pretty close to being the same. And more or less shoot down all the arguments about people had why they did not buy an electric car. Well, I get done with my presentation, and the person in charge of the group of investors says, that was a great presentation. I've just got one question. But before I ask the question, I'm going to set this up. He says, we're all very, very, very super excited about buying an electric car. You've done a fantastic job. In fact, we all want to buy an electric car right now. You just tell me, where do I buy it? And I'm literally standing there and I'm sitting there, Tesla, I guess. I mean, I knew I was in trouble, but he kind of looked at me and says, Rebecca, you are the absolute worst salesperson I've ever met. He says, you have actually just sold everybody up here a product you don't actually sell. And he says, I'll tell you what, he says, I don't think this widget that you have that's going to promote electric vehicles is really going to go anywhere. He says, not that it's not great. You've obviously done a great job selling it. I just don't see the commercial possibilities. But I'll tell you what, if you had a platform that actually sold electric vehicles, the thing you just sold all of us, I will fund that. And so
Wow.
I'm sitting there, okay, sounds like a plan to me. I get on the phone to my other director and say, hey, we're going to start selling electric cars. She thought I'd lost my mind. I told her the story, and she says, yeah, I guess we're selling electric cars. And so we said, we're going to start selling electric cars. Of course, do a little research and find out about the salary sacrifice scheme that exists in the UK, and decided, it's where we actually want to actually have our business of selling electric cars, and made that decision for two reasons. One was the salary sacrifice scheme. It removes the one reason people still have of not buying an electric car is that they tend to be a little more expensive than a petrol equivalent. Not as much as it was 6 years ago. There's a lot of cars now that are, quite frankly, on par price-wise anyway. But with salary sacrifice, it's a foolish financial decision to buy a petrol car. That you can get a much better car, spend much less money on it if you go electric. The other reason we decided to actually make sure our business opened here was not only is there a salary sacrifice scheme, but the UK's driving culture is virtually identical to the culture in the US. People drive cars here because it's a status symbol, that it's part of being a big kid, that you transition to an adult, you drive a car. The fact is, do we any of us need to drive a car? Absolutely. Most of us probably do not. And I could say the same thing in the US. People drive cars because it's a status symbol. It's a part of a transitioning to adulthood. Whereas if I pop over to the continent, if I'm in France, people drive a car in France to get from point A to point B. They don't care how beat up it is. It doesn't matter if it's really nice. And that's the truth of most of the world, that a car is a tool getting you from point A to point B. And that's not really going to help me sell brand new cars if that's everybody's thought process. Yeah. So the UK is very helpful to us in the fact that it's this nice testing bed, building out our platform for us to eventually launch in the US.
Amazing. So you've had this business presentation, which has then pivoted your idea for your own business. You've identified that there's obviously an advantage to working and selling in the UK because there's going to be a demand there. So what were your next steps then in terms of for the wire and getting it up and running and marketing yourselves? Where did you go from there?
So a couple of items. So first thing from a technology standpoint, we actually had to build out the platform. So I do have a background in software engineering, but that's really not what my focus has been on years. So my other director, who's based in Seattle, she actually handled most of the technical side of building out the platform. She manages our software engineering team. So they focus on building out the platform. I, at the same time, then focused on building out our sales effort and experimenting, trying different things for reaching out and driving sales. So we actually finished the platform in mid 2021. We then started really selling early 2022. I hired a sales director, which had a lot of experience. She had actually been working, managing the campaign for Just Eat. And
Oh yeah.
that campaign had been wrapped up for just a while. And so brought her on because we were trying to do something similar. That we want to reach out to small businesses and promote salary sacrifice. And so it worked out really well. We've tried a number of different things. And I think that's important when you're, as any business, is that you try lots of different things. Don't be married to any one idea, and look for what's producing positive results, and try to go into things without any preconceived notions. Very difficult. There's things I think should work, they might not. There's things I'm shocked that produce results. But I think it's very important that you try lots of different things, especially when it comes to marketing. And there's a lot of things you can try, even in a small firm. Obviously, if you've got a £1 billion marketing budget, it's easy to try lots of different things. When you've got a much smaller marketing budget, it's a little more challenging. But we've tried different things. We've tried direct sales to people. We've attended events. We've hosted events. One of the things we've done since late, I guess, 2022, since early 2023, was we actually sponsored the Partick Thistle football team. We put our name on the stadium. So it's Wire Stadium at Fir Hill as opposed to just Fir Hill.
Yeah.
Old-time Thistle fans kind of get annoyed by that, but they also appreciate the fact that they really like the team and actually contribute financially to them. So hopefully making the Jags a little more successful. But it's been very helpful to actually look at different things. As part of our outreach program, as part of our direct sales program, we've actually, of course, run into people. We have competitors, and our competition is kind of in two different categories. We have people who do essentially the exact same thing we do, and they haven't been really problematic because they're mostly focused down south in England. We're really the only electric car salary sacrifice scheme located in Scotland. So that's been super helpful to us. Our primary competitors are more focused on just large firms. So Lex Auto Leasing and just some of the very large auto leasing companies in the UK, where they are competitors, that's fine, but they focus mainly on very large companies. They focus on existing company car schemes. And that's not what we focus on. We found that trying to go head to head with them was a losing proposition. They have massive marketing budgets. They have 40 years of history with some of their clients. They're backed by giant banks. They have literally unlimited funding. So going head to head with them is a losing proposition. But what we found is they don't target small companies, and there's a lot of individuals they don't even target at large companies. And that's really what we focus on doing. And I think that's important in any type of business, that you find a niche where you can be successful. And one of the niches we have been successful in is implementing salary sacrifice for football teams. That nobody else does that. Certainly not for the smaller football teams. I mean, if you get down to a Man City or something, sure, they've got 750 staff, not counting any of their players. They have a company car scheme, but you get into some of the smaller clubs, they don't. And the big auto leasing companies do not focus on them. And we've been successful with them. We've been successful with small software companies that people have not even ever thought of reaching out to them. They're a bunch of software engineers. They're all on great salaries, and nobody ever thought of doing a company car scheme for them. One of our biggest customers is a very large American software company. And in the US, company car schemes flat don't exist. The only people that have them tend to be salespeople, and those are actually quite rare. And then they don't exist because there's no tax advantage in the US. When we approached them and we said, look, there's this tax saving you can offer your employers, that got back to Austin, Texas, and they said, yeah, sign us up. Why would we not sign up for this? And it's a, whereas they have 40,000 people around the world, there's only 200 in the UK, but every single person in the UK is a software engineer. And
Yeah,
at this point, pretty much every time somebody gets a new car at this company, they actually buy an electric car from us. And it's because it's a no-brainer. You're getting an electric car for effectively half price. And so you're saying,
brilliant.
yeah, I want that. Why would I go out and buy the petrol BMW when I can get the electric BMW? It's an awesome car, and I get it for half as much.
Amazing. Do you know you've said some really insightful things through all that, Rebecca? Some of the stuff that stood out to me was around about your marketing, is that whole test and measure approach. So looking at things which potentially you wouldn't have considered because of a preconception that you had, but actually just try them and actually measure the results to see what it delivers, which was such a great bit of advice. And I think the other one is that around about finding your niche, but defining your market. And defining your market doesn't, it's you're targeting in, it doesn't mean it's a particularly small group. When you say small business owners, there's a significant amount of them in and around Glasgow and Scotland and
Oh,
doing it through,
absolutely.
you know, and pretty much all of them will have a competitive streak and follow a sports team of one way, shape, form, or another. So really, really good. So once you define that market, then what's the obvious problem that you're solving to them is getting a much nicer car for a lot less than potentially it would cost. Um,
It's been a little challenging, and that is actually one of the challenges with going after the small to medium business market. Is a lot of times you're going to spend as much effort landing a customer that has 3 employees as somebody that has 30,
mm,
and that's obviously always been a challenge everybody faces in the SMB space. One of the advantages of going after SMB business is you're probably dealing directly with a decision maker. You're talking directly to a director. And where we've had challenges there is say they have 5 staff, we sell cars. And if that director happens to have bought a car 18 months ago, director ain't going to be interested in another car for 18 to 36 months. So no matter how good a deal you have, it's literally, they're just not buying because they literally don't have a need whatsoever. But your point is spot on, is there's a huge underserved market out there, that there's
mm,
thousands upon thousands of small to medium businesses. I mean, you start getting up to it, somebody has 1,000 employees. That's a really small number of organizations that also take forever to land. It's really great when you can land a big business for something, but even getting to speak to somebody that can possibly make a decision that somebody has 1,000 employees is very, very difficult, very time consuming. And no matter how good your value proposition is, it's going to take a long time to work through their decision-making process. Whereas with an SMB, it's going to be very, very quick, that you
yeah,
can reach out to them. And you do have to deal with the fact that they might not be interested for no other reason, no reflection on your product. It's they just flat don't need the product at this time. They might need it, like I said, in our case, when their lease runs out, when their current car is going to be turned back in, when they're actually going to be in the market, then that'll make sense to them. Uh, and you just have to really focus on, well, let's get on to the next person, get on the next person. And remember, let's make sure we document this person, keep in touch with them, so that when they are looking for a car, that you're in front of them.
mm,
Because everybody's in sales realizes that's a key to success, is when you can actually match somebody's need with what you happen to be offering. When you have that, you have a marriage, that you're going to make a sale. If they
yeah.
don't have the need for what you're selling, you're not going to sell whatever it is you're peddling.
And again, there's so many great insights in there. Just that part about being able to nurture somebody through that sales funnel, if you like, to put it back into sales context, it's having that right level of marketing for where they are in that process. Because you never know, it could be for small business owners, it could be something as simple as we've landed a big contract ourselves. We need to expand very quickly. Therefore, I have to, if I think from a trade perspective, oh, now I have to give my van over to somebody to go and carry out the work while I look after the business side. And now I'm left without a vehicle. So that can happen really quickly for some people. And having that awareness of, well, actually, now I can get myself a nice car, which reflects what I'm doing with my business, is a great place to be. So nurturing that sales cycle is brilliant. But the other bit that I'm interested in is you speaking about, whether you land a business which can then buy 30 cars off you, or landing 30 businesses which can buy one car from you. It's time that you're going to have to put into all of these elements. So how do you manage that yourself, Rebecca? How do you manage your time so that you can continue to nurture the potentially bigger relationships, but also develop those smaller ones as well?
So one of the things we try to do is we try to use automation where we can.
Great.
We use tooling that we look for what we're doing in our current process and say, you know what, I'm spending 45 minutes for sending out invoices to 5 customers. What can I do to use a computer system to make that automatic?
Mm.
So one of the things we did is developed an in-house operating system that actually takes all the invoicing needs to be done and sends that out automatically.
Yeah.
It's something not everybody necessarily can do. I happen to have a team of software engineers, and that's what they do. And so not everybody has a team of software engineers.
It would be
Uh,
handy, I'm sure.
it 100% is, but you can always actually look for ways to improve your efficiencies. That
Sure.
you find things that you're doing repetitively, and what can I do to either eliminate it or to make it simpler? Sometimes that's just time boxing. That, you know what, instead of sending out an invoice in the morning and then coming back to send out another invoice in the afternoon, let's time box it. Let's do them all at the same time,
Mm.
and just stopping shifting gears and switching focus to different things will help you be more efficient. You can definitely get more done if you set time aside for, here's the set of tasks I'm doing 8 to 9. I'm doing a completely different set of tasks 9 to 10. And no automation, still me doing all the work or whoever doing all the work, but you're doing it in a more effective manner than flip-flopping back and forth between things. I think we've all seen, don't check your email every hour, check your email twice a day.
Mm.
And yet people still do this silly thing of checking their email every hour. It's easy, and unfortunately we get dinged when things come in. You say, well, alarm, oh my God, I'm distracted. And little things like that just really make your day
Well,
take a
yeah,
lot longer and you get a lot less done.
I would agree because even so, I know all these tools and tricks that you're speaking about, but if I'm doing something which is administrative or something like that, I will open myself up to being distracted by something which I'm going to find much more fun. So having that structure to your day, is such a good piece of advice, and then being able to delegate. And delegation, I think when we say that word, we always think of being able to give it to, somebody else, but actually the point you've made there is there's lots of automative or automation that you can do now with different technologies, which will take some of those repetitive tasks away.
And you mentioned delegation. That is something I think is very difficult for people to do. That as a small business owner, especially when you start with it's a 1 or 2 person shop and then you grow a little bigger, I think it is very difficult to let the baby go and let truly turn something over to one of your employees and not still have your finger in every little pie.
Yeah,
Because I know it's been a challenge for me. That it's been very, very difficult for me as businesses have expanded to just let somebody handle stuff on their own. Like, let them take care of that business relationship, especially if it's a relationship that I built. It's like,
yeah,
I really don't want to let you take care of it. I mean, I would never say that, but that's really what you're doing.
yeah.
Is you just won't let it go, and you need to. You have to. If you're going to scale, if you're going to expand, you're going to have to let other people do what they're good at, and you need to keep focusing on moving the business forward.
So I agree. That's a challenge I see a lot of the times with business owners is that just being able to let go a little bit. So how have you overcome that yourself? What did you do, or what was the thing that made you give you a bit of confidence that you can say, okay, I can give that to someone else now.
I think part of it is just doing it and being able to take a step back and finding something else to focus on. I
Mm.
think that's key, is that take a task, delegate that to someone else, let it go, and realize that they might not do it the same way you do it. They may not do it as well as you do it, but they will get to do it as well as you were doing it, and really focus on what you are now doing to drive the business forward. And that I've now freed up 45 minutes of my time that I'd spent doing something else, and that other person's taking an hour and a half to do it. So be it. I've got 45 minutes I can now invest in something else, and really look at it, what return on investment of your time is. I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we're not working all 24 of them. So when you look and say, okay, I could have been spending my time over here in bucket A, whereas I've now delegated that to someone else, and I'm now spending the same 45 minutes building new business or whatever it might be. And you look at it, that is more valuable to my organization. Now, of course, you look at it, and what you're doing now is playing free cell or something. You're playing video games. Okay, that has no value to the organization. So maybe that wasn't a great investment of your time. But as long as you can focus on, yes, I'm delivering more value to the company, and in the end to yourself. You're a small business owner, you own the business. It's about growing the business and delivering more value. And certainly it's got to be something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times, if it's something that I could delegate that was something I didn't enjoy, that's certainly an easy win. But there's sometimes it was something I enjoyed, but others I've got to go over and focus on some of these things that might not be as enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely. I think another great thing you can do is just through your communication with that employee or that third party that you maybe delegate to, is having those regular time check-ins, whether it's a weekly meeting or a monthly one-to-one or something that just helps to understand where the challenges might be and what the opportunities are as well. A great way of just giving you a bit more confidence to take it step by step, I suppose.
And I do think that's important to obviously stay involved. You don't want just to throw the activity out and then I'm not going to pay attention to it. And I agree. It's just kind of about back to that theme of being having a structured day, is have a time when you check in, and that's what you're focusing on. Is here's what I turned over to you. Where are you with this? What challenges you face? What wins do you have? Certainly collect feedback from them
Mm,
about suggestions they have about doing something better, and realize that if they say that something you were doing, they don't want to do it that way, and they might have an idea of doing it that makes their day more efficient, or it might just be better. Because I think a lot of times as a small business owner, I think people become very defensive and very possessive about how we did everything. And I think a lot of times we take it almost as a personal assault, that how dare you say you could do this better. I've been doing it this way for 5 years. It's like, you can't take things that way.
mm,
That how I prefer to do something might work for me, it might not work for somebody else. And the fact I was wearing 17 hats, it's like you probably weren't doing any of those activities really, really well. You might have been doing them all okay. And so, yeah,
mm,
I think you really have to see it that way, is that I was only doing all these things okay. I've now turned this activity over to somebody. That's what they've got more of their day focusing on. Realize they're probably going to do it better. And don't take that as, oh my God, I failed, I'm terrible, or that how dare they tell me they can do something in my business better. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that.
Yeah, and I think what you've summarized nicely there is you've taken, we've spoken about some of the tools and the tactics that we can implement to make running the business easier, but actually a lot of it's about your frame of mind that you've spoken about there in terms of your approach to it and your outlook on it, and I suppose your perception of it, how you framed that situation, and being able to just step back and maybe have a different view.
I do think that's important to always keep reanalyzing your business. Always try to be positive, and so for some people that's a lot easier. I'm just in generally a very positive, quite happy person, and very optimistic. And
Yeah.
I think that's important as a small business owner. I'll be honest, if you're an incredible pessimist, you're probably not going to be successful as a small business owner, because let's be honest, you're always getting smacked as a small business owner. That there's a lot more failure than there is
Yeah.
success. It's just the way of things, and you just have to deal with it and just move on. Certainly anybody in sales is familiar with that, and any type of small business is really sales driven.
Uh-huh.
To be able to maintain a positive attitude, when there are setbacks, learn from them, look and see what you could do better, and try to improve. Just every day, try to improve.
And that, that's coming through loud and clear, your optimism for these things, even the fact you came away from a presentation and said, "Hey, guess what? We're going to do a different business now," and just took that challenge head on. But uh, how do you go about keeping yourself in that positive frame of mind? Is there things that you do or people that you use around about you to help keep you just moving forward and have that optimism?
It's a combination of reaching out to people. I have a very large network of friends, family, but also just taking a step back. And when I get down on something, look at the positive side. I look for the silver lining in the cloud. There almost
Mm,
always is one, and focus on finding one that we can easily uh, go down a road to ruin, and keep looking at the negative things, looking at the negatives. And if you do that, that is exactly what it is. It is a path to doom. But if you stop, take a step back, deep breath, and look at, okay, what is good about this situation? I mean, for when I did the presentation to investor group, and they literally smacked me. I mean, there's a lot of people that would probably really just be horrified. They were told they were the worst salesperson ever, especially when I was proud myself as being a somewhat decent salesperson. You could have taken that very negatively. Uh, and it was true. I think it was somewhat meant as tongue in cheek. So
yeah,
the person wasn't brutal about it, but take it constructively. That I had. I mean, I literally sold a product I didn't have. And so let's be honest, that was ridiculously stupid.
mm,
and I could have looked at that and just been very negative about, oh my God, he hated my ID, and went home and cried, or took it as positive. And said, okay, let's move forward. What can I take from this that is positive? And I
yeah,
think that's key, is whenever you fail, and in a small business, you are going to fail frequently, is look at what you can do to get success from that. Uh, I think everybody realizes that you don't learn from success, you learn from failure. I don't know of anybody that says, I had to win, now what do I do better to win even more? It's always, oh, I lost. How can I do something to win?
yeah. No, definitely. I would maybe challenge that a little bit, Rebecca. I think that there are still lessons in terms of from winning.
Oh, I
I
definitely think you
completely
are. Just
agree
I think
that.
very few people look at it.
Well, yeah, you're right. You're right, and I think that's a challenge. It's how do we make that success better? But there's definitely lessons and I like lessons through failure rather than from it. So it's from the failure, then you find a different direction, which is going to push you on to success. So again, I really, really like that bit of insight you've shared there, Rebecca. So um, it's such an exciting time. You're in a great industry, and you're obviously very optimistic about pushing it forward. So what plans have you got for the Wire over the next 5 years, and how do you plan on getting there?
So a couple of things we're looking at. So we're looking at expanding, obviously, to all the football clubs throughout the UK, not just the Scottish footies.
Mm,
Uh, Looking at a couple of concepts for uh, improving people's ownership experience with electric vehicles. One of the things we found in working with electric vehicles over the past few years is that women on average buy fewer electric vehicles than men do. And done some research, worked with a lot of people on identifying why that's the case. And one of them is, if you look at where you charge electric vehicles,
mm.
if you look at where you can find electric vehicle chargers, they're all over the place. You will frequently hear people say there's not enough of them, we need more infrastructure. That's probably not true. There's a whole bunch of them. The issue is where they're located. That you find a lot of chargers in pretty dicey areas. And if you're a man, you probably aren't too worried about charging your vehicle, because men don't think about worried about being assaulted. But if the charger is under some dark bridge somewhere, or at the very back of a grocery store parking lot where there's like might be lights, might not, that's a little more concerning if you're female. And
Mm.
so one of the things we're looking at doing is opening charging locations called wire hubs. And what the idea would be is you drop your car off there and grab a coffee, we'd serve the coffee, and we can charge your car. And then you don't have to worry about this dicey parking lot situation where the charger happens to be. Also less concerned then about the charger not working, that you've got something
Oh,
else you can be doing while the car charges. We're eventually looking to launch in the US. because it's obviously a much bigger market. And we want to actually do that after we've built a proof of concept in the UK. Look, here's what we've structured. Here's the salary sacrifice scheme, and roll the same thing out in the US. And we're looking to do that probably in the next 3 to 4 years.
Well, that's really exciting. I love the idea of the charging hubs. I think that's, again, you've identified a real problem there, but found a really creative solution. Very, very
And
good.
that's what we try to do is we kick around ideas and we come up with stuff and dismiss some things and try other things. So
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. No, I like the concept. Great stuff. Here's a question for you then, Rebecca. So you've obviously you kind of yeah, Wire came out of nowhere, really. It was a suggestion. But if you were to go back to start with the plan in mind, and I was to give you £5 million, dollars, whichever you prefer, would you have done anything different to how you've done it so far?
I definitely think so. I think if you have funding and the amount of funding you have, you would definitely go down different avenues because I think that opens up different opportunities.
Hmm.
And this particular business is incredibly capital intensive. So a lot of our entire sales strategy, some of our programs have came from the fact that we don't have massive capital funding behind us. Like if we're one of the big auto leasing companies, like I said, that's kind of what led us to focus on the niche we're focused on is small places, firms that people traditionally haven't approached. If I go back and suddenly have access to more funding, I definitely wouldn't be going down the same path. I would be targeting different organizations. Uh, and unfortunately, I think that sometimes that leads to problems for society in the fact that if you have lots of funding behind you, then you just keep doing things the same old way.
Mm,
That I really do think necessity is the mother of invention.
yeah.
Necessity leads to innovation. We had to innovate. We had to do things differently because I didn't have massive funding behind me. Whereas if I suddenly had Elon Musk money, you know what? I could just sell cars. I have no big deals. Wouldn't have been a problem. Whereas I've had to look at structuring things differently, targeting a different market, an entire different strategy. I mean, we're not running just a bunch of ads on tele. We're not just doing massive YouTube things to get
Mm,
our word out. We've had to do things in a different manner, and I think it's actually provided opportunities now to lots of people, and we've helped people transition to electric that probably wouldn't have done it if we had started off with a lot of funding.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. So it's just really, really good. I love all that. Because if you see a model that works, you would just copy it. So you having to go and think for yourself, as you said, the mother, necessity is the mother of invention. I love that. So, um, maybe not particularly for somebody that's up and coming right behind you, but for yeah, younger businesses, people just starting out or on that journey where they're looking to grow and expand, what advice would you give to people in that situation?
I think anybody that's an entrepreneur or anybody starting a business, I think you need to realize some things about being a small business owner. Uh, One is it's a lot of work, and don't go into a small business assuming you're going to be out playing golf and that all the time. That it is a massive amount of work. It is probably not going to be financially rewarding for quite some time, if ever. That you've got to realize that one of the things you get out of being a small business owner is you get flexibility, that you make all the decisions,
Mm,
but also people need to keep in mind there's a lot of pressure behind that. That if you want a decent life and you want to actually just kind of coast along, work for a big company because you've got massive support networks. You're going to have some specialization that you do. And if you're a small business owner, that's not the case. I think you need a lot of people go into it unprepared.
yeah.
I think the other thing you got to realize is that make sure you understand everything about the business you're opening. And whether it's a small restaurant, I see people all the time, they're going to open a restaurant because they went out and had dinner and they can pop into Tesco and buy the ingredients for 20 pence on the pound or whatever. It's like, you don't understand that business. That
Mm,
buying the food is a small part of the cost that goes into it. Uh, Certainly realize you need a support network. That one of the sayings I've always hated is if you build a better mousetrap, the world will be the path to your door. No, they won't. I don't care how good your mousetrap is. Nobody knows about it. It's about getting the word out, and it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
And like I've said numerous times, as a small business owner, there's going to be more failures than success. Embrace them and realize that. Certainly celebrate the successes and then move on from failure. That's what you have to do.
Mm.
I also think it's very, very vital to somebody starting a business and being in a small business, is don't be married to your idea. I could have went into that presentation, got shut down, and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go find somebody else. There's a lot of investor groups out there. I could have keep beating my head against the wall, or take the advice and do something different.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't do that. Is like, if you've started a business and it's not successful, look why it's not successful, but don't keep trying to do the same thing. Don't just keep hoping things will change. Find out why it's not working and do make changes. And because if you're not making changes, you're going to keep failing, and that you don't want to do that. Also, I think people need to be willing to pull the plug on an idea. Don't sink your whole life into something that isn't working. Put effort into it and change gears, do what you have to do. But yeah, don't sink your entire life. Don't sink your entire nest egg into something that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. And yeah, you've touched on the definition of insanity there as well, haven't you? Just
Indeed.
repeating that. So brilliant. Rebecca, if I am a small business owner, or I've got a team of people that I'm employing and I'm looking to be more efficient with what I do with my car allowances, how do I find you? How do I find the wire and get in touch with you?
Certainly the best place to get a hold of us is go to trywire.com. That's our website. You can browse all our vehicles there. We have some explanations of how our salary sacrifice schemes work. We have two different mechanisms for people going through our website. You can go through it as an employer, and it points out all the advantages from an employer standpoint. You can go through it as an employee. It points out all the advantages of an employee. A very straightforward process. As far as being an employer, you really don't sign up for anything because the way we implement our scheme, it's really just a relationship that we have, that the employer says, hey, you're going to get a car for my employee. I don't know how you're going to make it happen, but you do. We're going to give you 500 quid a month for our staff member, and they're going to get a car. All of the getting the automobile and everything, we work out directly with the employee, which
Right.
our scheme is somewhat different than any of our competitors. And makes it very, very simple on an employer. All of our employees, so as far as I know, have just really been excited about it.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, I'll make sure that people get in touch with you, listen to this, check out the website, trywire.com. And it sounds like an exciting future. And I wish you all the best for it, Rebecca. Thanks so much for your time today. It's been great.
Thank you, Stephen. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon. Rebecca, thank you so much.
Cheers.